Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at Nik Collection 8. So we're going to take a look at what is it for, and how do you use it. The program is a series of plugins, and those plugins can be used standalone, they can be used with Photoshop, they can be used with Adobe Lightroom. However, today we're going to take a look at how they integrate into the Adobe Photoshop ecosystem. So each one of the plugins inside of Nik Collection has a very specific functionality. Silver effects, it's for black and white. Color effects, it's for color. Analog effects, it's for doing analog effects on your images, and so on. Then we're going to create two really dynamic images using presets or the filters inside of the specific plugins within the Nik Collection. A lot of the effects that you're going to see inside of the Nik Collection would be really difficult to create inside of Photoshop. They've made it really easy. It's kind of one click and done. And the cool thing is it has a lot of functionality, so you can really control how each one of the presets or filters is applied to every specific layer within Adobe Photoshop. And today we're going to go through the different plugins that are available. So if we come up here, there's a couple of ways to do this, but right here we'll come down and we'll drop down to Nik Collection 8, and you'll see that we have the analog effects, color effects defined, HDR with tone mapping, which really means it's just for a single image versus bracketed. We have a pre-sharpener, a sharpener, silver effects, Bezier, and then some preferences. I usually get mine through preferences, which is this right over here, and we have all the different icons. I can select these and it will launch them. Below this we have some options, and that's how it integrates or how it opens into the programs and saves back into it. And so this video doesn't go on for an insane amount of time. We're going to quickly go through this process. The first one that we have right here is color effects. I'm going to select that. It's going to take my photo and the masks, because that's the way I have it set up, though there's no masks on this image. And it's going to throw it over into the program for color effects. So color effects are a series of presets and filters. The presets are a combination of these filters or effects. And all you would have to do is select one of these, and you can see on this hand side, it's now applied that effect. Now what's great about these is just because I applied it, I can still come over here on the right hand side and adjust that. So we've got a whole bunch of different filters or effects that you can apply to the image, and they are color based. Next we have silver effects, and silver effects, just like color effect, has a very specific application, and it is for adjusting black and white images and different effects. So right here we have some presets. I can click on this right here. This is the before, this is the after. We can also scroll down here, open this up, and you can see here are the different options for filters that we have that we can apply to this image. Next we have analog effects, and analog effects and silver effects are probably my favorite. But depending on the type of work you do, you might have other interests as far as the Nik Collection goes. So what does analog effects do? We can click right here. We've got a 70s instant photo. We can select that. It's going to apply a preset. The preset is going to give our image a look like this. I can slide this over so we can see the whole thing. So I slid the before and after over. This is what we get. Everything that's in this preset is on the right hand side of the screen. It is all fully adjustable, and if we just wanted to add something extra to this or take something away, we could simply come over here, because you can add any filter to any preset or anywhere at the time. Now the way this works is, and I'll just go ahead and apply this one just so we can see it. I'm going to hit apply, and it's going to take what it did here as the preset and then throw it back into Adobe Photoshop. Now if you were working just in the standalone program, you would just export this. As you can see up here, we do have an export. We are back inside of Photoshop. You can see that effect that we created, and the analog effects is saved. It says analog effects over here. It's saved as its own layer. So if I want to turn it on and off, we can do that. Next, we have the Bezier. And what you'll notice here, it's a little bit different. We do have some presets over here, but we do not have any filters. This is just for basic color adjustments. You can see right over here on the right-hand side, this is everything that it does. So it does have some basic functionality, but because I'm integrated with Adobe Photoshop, probably something that I wouldn't use. But if you were using this as a standalone application, then you would come in here to adjust your image. Next, we have Define, and it's simply a noise removal program. Next, we have Pre-Sharpener. So what Pre-Sharpener does is sharpen after you've converted your raw files. So on cameras today, they have what we call anti-aliasing filters, and they make the image a little bit soft because of that filter. You'll know on some studio cameras, they remove that filter and the images come out a little bit sharper. So this is to pre-sharpen your image because of the filter. However, this isn't something that I really recommend doing. I would say if you're going to sharpen, which I think everybody should do, it's at a very specific time. You need to size your image, and how you sharpen is very specific on output. And we'll see that when we get to the sharpener. Next, we have sharpener output. And sharpener output should be done at the end, after you've adjusted your image, when you've sized your image and you're ready to output this. Now, when you sharpen, it is specific on how you output and your size. So you should always size your image first before you use this. Actually, if you come over here, you'll see there's different ways for display, inkjet, continuous tone, halftone, hybrid device. Because depending on how you're going to output is going to be dependent on how you sharpen your image. What's great about sharpener output is the control that you get in your image over the sharpening process. So like in skin tones, you don't want to sharpen someone's skin because that would be weird. Sharpening, you're essentially increasing the contrast of edges. And we get a whole lot more control in this program over that process. However, there is a learning curve, understanding what's going on over here and how it will affect your image. One thing I do see a lot that people do is they extremely over sharpen images. This is a great tool, but there is a little bit of a learning curve. I will make a video and explain on how this works and how you should use it. The last of the plugins is very similar. When we click here, we've got HDR and HDR tone mapping. What bracketing means is you take a series of exposures. So if we think of this as perfectly exposed, then we're going to take one that's overexposed and one that's underexposed and combine those. So when you make it darker, you're actually getting highlight detail, and when you overexpose, you're actually getting shadow detail. So kind of the opposite of what you think. In this case, we don't have a series of bracketed images. Lastly, we have HDR effects with tone mapping. And so the tone mapping aspect is for a single image, and it's trying to create an HDR image, but from one image versus the traditional HDR in which you use 3 or 5 or 7 bracketed images together. You can already see in this image, it has really opened up the shadows here and it's evened out the whole photo. I can come over here and click on balance and it's going to give us effect. I can take this little slider and slide this over. What HDR stands for is called high dynamic range. And what that means is a camera can only grab so much information in one exposure. So bracketed images or HDR, you take one image for the midtones, one for the shadows, one for the highlights. And you can combine the best aspects of each of those images together to give you an expanded dynamic range. So what's happening in HDR effects with tone mapping is the program is optimizing your image to give you the best shadow detail, highlight detail, midtone detail, to give you that kind of high dynamic range in your image, or as much as you can get from a single exposure. We can come over here and see some deep, and it's going to give us a different effect there. This is HDR effects with tone mapping, and just like everything over here, we do have some presets, and you can adjust those options over here on the right-hand side. All right, so we have this image of a calla lily that I've created, and I think I use color effects and analog effects for this. So this is what the image looked like, just your standard boring photo. And we've aged this and give it sort of an alternative process look. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this image from the original layer and we're gonna create something similar, maybe not the same, but something similar using the Nik collection. So let's see what we can create here. So I've got this image here. Now, one of the first things I want to use, and one of my favorite options within the collection, is the ability to add masks from Photoshop to the Nik collection. So you can, right here, it says send all masks. Masks I would want to use for this are the subject and the background. So we're simply going to come down here, hit select subject, let AI make the selection for us. And we're just going to apply it to a curve. It doesn't really matter because we just want the mask. So I'm going to click curve. So it's created the mask for the flower. I'm going to hit Command J on my computer and then Command I. And so that duplicated it, but created the opposite mask. I just inverted it. So now we got one for the background. So now when we send the images to anything in Nik collection, we can further refine the use of the plugins to only affect certain areas by using these masks. I could also do it the opposite way, just create it, come back in here to Photoshop and apply a mask to it. I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to go into silver effects first, and I'll show you why. We're going to do something here. I like the color, but I don't want all the color, but I don't want to get rid of too much color. All right, so inside of silver effects, we're here in presets, and we have a whole bunch of different options that we can sort of scroll through to get some different looks. These looks where anything that we like, we can easily scroll through and see if there's a specific preset that has exactly what we want. In this case, I'm going to go to my history because I don't want that. We're going to go back up to the neutral state and we're going to open up the filters and we're going to do this manually. So I can close this. Here are the different options that we have. So film grade branded, we have color filter, basic adjustments, some toning, some burnt edges, and some image borders. Let's take a look here. Click on this first one and see what it does. Looks like that's just an original. This is going to be branded, so it's going to be specific film looks. And this is just to add a little bit of texture back into the photos. I'm not seeing what I want with this Rolly Ortho. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select here. So this is just a different way to do the same thing. We're going to come up here to this negative, and when I hover over them, they're going to give us effects. All right. This looks pretty good. It's giving us a little texture in the flower, so that's what we want. So that's going to be our first step here. And I think that looks pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply hit apply, but we're going to do something weird to this that most people aren't used to. What we've done is we've come in here and all we did was just add a little noise and grain. We gave it a little bit of a film effect. But in doing so, we've also lost the color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just slide the opacity out and add some subtle color back into this, right? It is getting rid of some of that grain. That's okay. We're going to get more grain later on. So we're going to come in here, do the same thing. We're going to now click on analog effects. We're going to go into analog effects and see kind of what textures and layers we can add to this image to make it just a little bit more interesting. So we can come up in here. We've got a ton of presets. All right, so I can simply scroll through all these different presets and take a look at different looks and see if there's anything I like. So here's an effect, and it might not be perfect, but the great thing is just because this is a preset, we have the ability to come over here and further edit it. In this case, that's not what I'm looking for. So this is good. I'm not a fan of the color, right? And it's got that little speck there, but I kind of like everything else that's going on in this image. Eventually we can take that out. So let's come over here and see what it's done. The first thing that we're taking a look at is this effect that I like here. We've got this effect in the dust and scratches. We're just gonna leave that. Then it looks like we've got a little bit of a lens vignette. I don't know if we need that or not. So I think I'm gonna turn that off for now. And down here where it's turned it that green color, I don't really want that. I'm looking for more of a neutral color. So let's go ahead and select neutral and click on one of those colors and see what it gives us. All right, so we have selected this neutral film type number 1, and I could simply go through here and start selecting each image. and it's basically making subtle changes as I do that. I'm just going to come up here and just select this first one. And then we're going to come down here. So we've got the strength of that. We have the grains per pixel and the hardness. So I can come in here and I can adjust this information to change the effect that we're getting over here. So I think this looks pretty good, but one issue I have here is it did totally get rid of the color, and that's not something that I want. So what we can do is we can come down here to our history. So we have this, so I've opened up history, and right here we have all the different options that we've selected. In this case, we're just gonna go back up to basic adjustments and start over. In this case, I don't wanna totally lose that color. So let's go ahead, open this back up, and let's take a look at something different. In this case, let's add paper textures and see what that looks like. So we're going to come in here. We have some options. I'm going to go to vintage and we'll just click on something to see what it looks like. All right, that's too strong. All right, that's better. Let's come in here. Let's take a look at worn. That's going to be too strong. Classic. Let's just click on maybe a simpler one. Ooh, that's way too much. All right, that's nice and soft. We're going to come in here, we're going to dial that strength back just so we get a little bit of it. Just subtle texture. All right, that looks pretty good. So we're going to come up here to bokeh, and we're going to click on bokeh, and we're going to control this image. So I'm going to open this up, and then I'm going to take this and slide it up. I want to get all of the flower. Let me move this up so we get all that. And then I want to stretch this down. So what's going to happen here is inside this circle, nothing's going to happen. And then it's going to fade this out from 0 to 100% of the effect. So as it goes out, it's going to get stronger. We can come in here and change this. So if I want to blur the strength a little bit, and what I'm trying to do is just kind of fade this. Let's go here. I don't want to lose anything on the flower, but I want it to start fading from about there. So that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's take a look at photo plate. So we're going to click on photo plate, and here's one of the ones where we might not want this through our whole image, maybe just a portion of their image, but let's go ahead and take a look. So we have streaked. I can click on this and go to corroded or concrete. Let's go to corroded, and let's click on this one. All right, that's okay, but that's not what I wanted. We'll select another one. That's too much. Let's go back to streaked. All right, that's better. Click on this one. All right, that's not bad. Click here. All right, I think I like that one down here the best so far. I think I like this. So let's come down here and let's come and add a frame. So we're going to select our frames. And I don't think I'm going to use any of these frames. Let's go down to Lightbox and see what we get there. All right, I like what that's doing. This one is sort of similar to what I was using before because it has that brownish color. Come in here and try film strip, see what if any of these look good. All right, that's not bad. I don't like the bluish color, but I like the effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to undo this, and I'm going to do something interesting. So we're going to go ahead and hit apply. So we're going to save from this state. So I'm going to hit apply. You can see right here we've created a new layer. And the issue was the blue color, but I liked the effect, but I didn't like the blue color. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into analog effects again, and we're going to click on frames. We're going to go into Lightbox, come back down here and take a look at the one that I thought was too blue. And that's not too bad. So let's go ahead and apply that just to see what we can do. So the issue here is it made it cool, and I don't want it to be cool. All right, so we're back here. You can see it's created its own layer. What we're going to do here is, because we just want to get rid of that color, I'm going to go into hue saturation, and I'm going to click on my cyans, and I'm going to desaturate cyans, and I'm going to desaturate blue. So essentially now we got that effect, but we removed that blue color. I'm actually going to go into my curve and drag this up on top because I want to use it since it selected that image. I'm going to select it here, and I just want to brighten this image. The flower is getting a little bit too dark, so I'm going to brighten that up. Since I already had the mask and everything created, might as well use that layer since we weren't. So this looks pretty good. We now have this image here. Let's go ahead and take this image and now slide it over into color effects. And what I want to do is maybe just age this with a simple color. So we can come up here, we can take a look at some presets. So here's a, don't know what summer is. That's a little bit too much. We've got sort of a green color here. Let's do some other funky stuff to it. Got color there. If we wanted to go more neutral, we could come down here. That's actually not too bad. Let's go to the filters and just go to the original image. So let's come down and try Photo Stylizer. So I'm going to select that, and you can see over here it's giving us some different tones. I think we're going to select the russet, and then down here we've got this style. We can come over here and try these different effects, see what we like. Like that, that's giving more of a brown color. The strength is 100%, and then we can dial that out. Just want to make this subtle. Let's go ahead and hit apply. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go into hue saturation, and I'm just going to desaturate that a little bit. I can shift that color around a little bit. Go directly into the reds, so you can see I'm directly affecting the red color. Just going to go here and go this way. It's going to make it a little more yellow. All right, that looks pretty good. So one of the things, it did get a little dark in this area. We're going to go ahead and just open that up a little bit with a curves adjustment. So I'm going to go make a curves adjustment. Just looking at this area right here. I actually like what it's doing everywhere, but here I don't want to brighten that up. So essentially I'm going to paint black there. So I'm going to take my brush, which is the letter B. So with the color black and my brush in the mask, we're just going to go ahead and paint black there. And that's just going to paint that effect out of that location. So we're brightening essentially, oops, looks like I missed a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. So I'll turn this on and off so you can see what I did. We just kind of open that image up a little bit. So just like that, using a combination of Adobe Photoshop, color effects, silver effects, analog effects, all inside of Nik Collection 8, we've created this new and more dynamic image. So let's go ahead and shift, delete, group everything. So our first image looked like this, which is wonderful. Our original image looked like this, and our new image looks like this. If you have any comments or questions, you can always leave those below. Don't forget to subscribe and have an absolutely wonderful day.